Hi, everybody. Angel here. Hope you guys are doing great. And I'm excited today to speak with Nico. And we will get started in a moment. Hi there.
Yo, how you doing?
Fine, how are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for the invite.
Thank you for joining and taking the time. I know everybody's busy.
We're all busy, but I always got time for chats like this.
Awesome, awesome. So I did pin an abbreviated summary of our topics on the bottom, a little bit probably just in shorthand, just to kind of keep it short. But we have lots of topics to cover. But while we go through, as folks come in, I'll just pause and say hi, and then we can continue. And I am playing with filters, so you are going to see some avocados flying around.
I love it. The more avocados, the merrier.
Awesome. So I want to say hi to everybody who's joining, and please put your questions and comments down below for Nico, and he'll be happy to answer. And thanks so much for taking the time to come in and chat with us. And so I think we should just jump right in there, Nico, because we do have a lot of topics.
Perfect. Let's dive in.
All right. So my first question for you, Nico, is if you could tell us, please, about your vegan journey, how you started, and how you ended up to where you are today.
Yeah, and can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So I've been vegan for 8 years now. And I guess it was a slow transition starting out. Um, I first stopped eating like pork and beef for health reasons like 9 years ago. And when I stopped eating those, I could finally start to see pigs and cows for really the first time. And yeah, things just started to click. Because I think the cognitive dissonance between eating those beings and respecting them was just too big for me to really to see them for who they are. So um, yeah, that was the start, and then as soon as that clicked, it was pretty immediate. I was like, oh my gosh, how am I? And there was actually one moment. There was one moment. I was eating pasta with one of my buddies in 2012. We had gone out for pasta. We had both ordered the exact same meal. He ordered his with tofu, and I ordered mine with a chicken. And it came out, and I was just kind of like struck. I was like, why on earth would I have killed somebody for this meal when I didn't need to? And I haven't eaten somebody since. And yeah, every day is. And I guess one more thing is I am the first vegan I ever met. I grew up in a very, very rural town. I had never even heard that word until college. Um, but yeah, as soon as like I mean, when you know, you know. So yeah, that was it 8 years ago, and every day I felt stronger, more passionate about it ever since.
Yeah, and I mean, your passion is definitely something that drew me to you. And I'm gonna tell everybody who is on the line, and I do want to say, thanks so much for everyone coming in and joining. And please put your questions and comments down below for Nico, and he'll be happy to answer. And Nico, I'm gonna do something that I've never done before, and that is I'm gonna tell everybody about the question you asked me just before we started our live.
Okay.
And that is, have we met before in person? And the reason I am sharing this secret that you will probably embarrass you is because ever since I discovered you, I've just felt such a connection to you and such an affinity to your energy. And I think a lot of it has to do with, that we both practice Ashtanga, that you're super passionate about, our beautiful animals, and just to me, just your whole aura just kind of drew me to you. And so when you sent me that question, like just minutes ago, it didn't shock me because I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I have been feeling. And he is actually now putting it into words.
Yeah, no, it feels like we've met and it feels like we know each other. And I was just I was trying to like remember the exact time we hung out, and I was like, I can't figure it out.
No, and I have chatted with over 50 people so far on these lives, and that has never happened to me before.
Wow.
I kid you not. So with that said, and I apologize for revealing that secret question that you sent.
No, it's all good. I'm all about just being very direct and honest with everything.
Yeah. Oh, we have a comment here. Well, we have a ha from Alex Dalton. We have a from Jesse. Nico has a very proactive, progressive energy. Could be easily replaced with. And then I don't know what happened after that. Anyway, with familiarity. Yeah. Awesome observation there, Jesse. So please keep your questions and comments coming down below for Nico. And while we wait, let's go to our next topic, which is Ahimsa. And I first saw you, you had, shared your perspective on Ahimsa during an Instagram live with someone else. And that's how I stumbled across you. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is just so powerful. And I'm not going to spoil anything, but please tell everybody what is Ahimsa and, what it means to you.
Cool. And as you know, because I think you saw the other video, I can chat about Ahimsa forever. So I'll try to keep it short and succinct, a quick little introduction, because it really is one of my, it's probably the most important value in my life. So my first tattoo is right here, and it says Ahimsa. So Himsa, right here, this part means violence. With the ah, it negates it, so it means non-violence, the opposite of violence. And so it's an active form of justice, really. So the idea is that we are actively working to combat and prevent violence. And I don't think, for me, there's not a more central value in my life, whether it's spiritual, ethical, or normative. And so it's slightly different. Sorry, I'm just doing a little tattoo tour, but it's slightly different. This idea right here means peace. Shanti is peace.
Oh, yeah.
And so this is the absence of violence, but this is really the presence of peace. So it's an active form of peace. And so to do violence unto another, you have to see them as a different than you. You have to conceptualize that they're not you, and to justify in your head that it's okay to hurt them, because we're not okay hurting ourselves. We're not gonna say like punch ourselves or whatever. We recognize that like this is me. So to do violence into another, you have to other them, and I think that's a fundamental flaw. I don't see others as separate from us. I see us all as connected as one. And it's through practicing Ahimsa, through practicing, non-violence towards others, that we can cultivate the sense of spiritual truth and unity. I think the easiest and most fundamental way to practice this is when we eat 3 times a day, and to not consume violence, right? Like when we consume the flesh or secretions of other beings, it's an act of violence. We're consuming their death. And I guess I'll try to wrap this up quick, but it's when we justify the suffering of others and the violence to others because it tastes good, right? It's the most basic level of it's the weakest justification that you can even imagine. Like, it tastes good, so it's okay to cause violence. And when we accept that in ourselves, in our heart, it allows us to do violence in so many other ways. So I think the first step to combating this violent world we live in is to divest ourselves from it and that starts with what we're consuming every day.
Yeah, and when you were speaking, what came to mind was speciesism. In other words,
Mm-hmm.
that we see other species as lesser than, and then we kind of have this hierarchy of species in our minds as well, or in our cultures. So that's really what came to mind when you were speaking. We have a request here from Alex Dalton. Nico, would you come to the UK to do activism?
I would love to. Yeah,
Awesome.
let's plan on that as soon as all this COVID quarantine stuff passes over. I'd love to connect with you there.
Awesome. Okay, so let's hop on over to our next question while we wait for other folks to chime in, and that is your animal rights, your efforts, your activities. Tell us a bit about what you're doing in that area, please.
Yeah. So I guess going back to this idea of ahimsa, I think the part of ahimsa is when you see violence to actively combat it, to actively work to end violence. Um, right. And we kill we farm and kill hundreds of billions of animals every year, and hunt and kill trillions. And it's just really hard to comprehend that kind of violence. And uh, I feel like knowing that it's really incumbent upon us to be active in our resistance. And that's where my activism comes in, right? It's being active in my beliefs of equality and my belief of compassion and peace. Um, so activism is really the central core and tenet of my life. It's putting into practice my values and my love for others. Um, so I've been a I first got involved in activism, I guess, right around 8 years ago. But for a while, I was working pretty full time within the climate justice space. I was working with Greenpeace, and yeah, really trying to address climate change. Uh, and when I watched Cowspiracy, which I'm not sure, imagine a lot of people have seen,
Yeah.
it has a pretty stark critique of how a lot of the big environmental groups have totally ignored the role of animal agriculture. And it really shifted me. And it was in that process that I came to see that I think the greatest harm on earth is animal agriculture, the greatest source of suffering, the greatest cause of climate change, one of the greatest threats to public health. And so wanting to address animal agriculture with my activism. So I've organized in Nicaragua, in Colombia, in New York City, and now I'm here in Berkeley, California. Um, and yeah, I guess I've been organizing pretty full time, trying to do outreach, expanding um, my ethic and my consciousness to others. Because I recognize that, sorry, I'm rambling a little bit,
No,
but
no, it's okay.
the first 18 years of my life, I didn't get it. Right? I was growing up and enculturated in um sorry, did I break up or am I still going?
Yeah, you're still here. You came back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Uh-huh.
cool. And so I recognize that I changed. I received information and I grew from it. And so want to give other people that opportunity to grow as well by sharing information with them. So that's one, but I'm honestly very focused on disruptive action, and very direct action. I believe we're living in a catastrophe and a crisis, and there's a deep sense of urgency that goes with that. And I think failing to take action with that sense of urgency limits the efficacy of our activism. So whether that's going directly into slaughterhouses to rescue animals, or locking down at slaughterhouses to prevent their operations from operating, I'm very focused and interested in taking these direct actions that recognize the urgency of this crisis, and directly putting my body in between to prevent the violence to others.
Yeah, and I just applaud you. I mean, I've seen, video footage of you, as one would say, in action, like, boots on the ground type of a thing on the front lines. And it's really powerful. And I would just, invite anybody who, watches this to, have a look at the work that Nico's doing. And I want to ask you, what is your advice, a couple of pieces of advice to people who want to become more active in the animal rights movement, or in on the front lines, or maybe behind the scenes? What are a couple of pieces of advice you would give people, please?
Yeah. So there are there are so many roles in the movement and so many ways to be an activist. You don't need to be getting arrested inside slaughterhouses. That's I think it's a really important role, but it's by far not the only role, and it's not the most important. Like, I think they all come together. Um, I think the most important thing is to end silence and to speak truth to power. So that can be if you're having a family dinner and someone says something problematic, like speaking out against that. It can be that simple. It can be sharing with other people like this incredible vegan meal you just made, and be like, look at this piece, like this incredible lively this meal I made without violence. But I think the most important thing is to start someplace. We all need to start someplace, and it's like, if you were to watch like the Olympics and watch Usain Bolt run the 100-meter dash in a crazy speed, you're not going to go out your first day and say, I'm going to do that, right? It's crazy. Or if you see like some weightlifter lift a crazy amount of weight, you're not going to be like, I'm going to do that tomorrow. Like, oh, I'm going to go for a jog, or I'm going to go for a walk, or so it all starts someplace. Start small, but stop being silent. It's the greatest gift you can give yourself, and it's the greatest gift you can give to this world, is to stop being silent and to start taking small actions to build a better world. I guess the last thing I'll say is I have tremendous hope in that we're all in this together, right? There are so many of us working all over the world to build a more just and beautiful society, and none of us has to do it by ourselves. But we all need to do a little bit, and it's together, when we all come together, that we can build the world we want to see.
No, that's awesome. And I'm so glad that you're like encouraging. In other words, like you say, you're not saying that, everyone has to go there and blockade the slaughterhouses, or, that's just one example. So I really appreciate you saying like everyone can, incrementally help, and just kind of, lock arms, and, we're stronger together.
Totally. Yeah. And it's like, and also a lot of people have different lived experience and different identities, and are different levels of ability to take action, right? Like I have a lot of privilege in a lot of different dimensions of my identity. Like as a white cis dude here in the United States, as a US citizen, English is my first language. Like, there are all these different dimensions of my privilege that allow me to take riskier action. And I don't expect anybody else to do that. What I do expect is that for people who maybe aren't in position to take riskier action, to still support those who can, whether it's just even sharing their stuff online. But yeah, I think we're all in this together. We all need to be supporting one another. And I see activism as an ecology. There are so many different parts, and for it to work, they all have to come together into this whole. And plug in where you feel like is your fit, and then support others with what they do.
I love that. I love that. I just want to say hi and thanks to anybody who's on the live. And please put your questions and comments down below for Nico, and he'll be happy to answer. And while we wait, let's go to our next topic, which is your animal studies degree. Please tell us a little bit about that. And first, and before I do that, congratulations again.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so I just recently graduated. MA in Animal Studies from NYU up in New York. So basically, the field of animal studies looks at the relationship between humans and non-human animals, and the significance of those relationships, right? So it can be the significance on animals, or or on other animals, non-human animals, or the significance upon humans. And it's a new field, but I think it's incredibly profound. Like the way that we as humans have always understood ourselves is by looking to other animals and defining ourselves by what we see and how we engage with them. So there are a lot of different fields within animal studies. The areas of my focus are more moral philosophy, so the ethics that come with our relationships with other animals, like political theory, like the political implications of those relationships, and then legal policy, like what we can be doing within the legal sphere to address them. So yeah, I get there, but there are so many different fields, and what I love about it, it's very multidisciplinary. So I took classes in sociology and psychology and like biology and philosophy and law. And so basically the idea is that that our relationships with other animals, hey, Master Mello, I just see one of my best buddies is just
Hi
joined
there,
the call.
Master Mello. Hi.
But the idea is that the implications and the consequences of our relationships with other animals impact every aspect of our lives in really profound and fundamental ways. And by acknowledging that significance, we can better understand ourselves and basically the world that we live in.
I love that. And I love how multidisciplinary it is, as you said. But also one part that, I didn't even realize until you just explained it was, it's so great that like how far you can push the boundaries or how far you can go in terms of your activities, your activism, within the realm of what's allowed and what's not allowed, quote unquote.
Yeah, totally. And I think it is important to acknowledge those kind of legal boundaries in a sense, both in terms of ensuring that people who aren't in a position to get arrested can stay safe, but also in seeing what needs to be pushed and changed. Just to better understand, because what I want to do is understand, right, the fabric of society that's holding things together and figure out how it can be kind of disassembled and reassembled in a more just and ethical way.
Totally. This is super, super interesting. I do want to say thanks for joining to everybody, and please put your questions and comments down below for Nico. He'll be happy to answer. And meanwhile, Nico, we're going to go to your Ashtanga practice. And
Cool.
as I said earlier, I love Ashtanga. I'm not practicing during this whole pandemic thing. And a shout out to the teacher that I will be practicing with if she's watching. Tell us a bit, please, about your Ashtanga practice and your teaching.
Cool. Well, it's always lovely to meet a fellow Ashtangi. So
that's what she said. That's what my teacher said. Yeah.
I don't know. It's not a super common form of practice here in the West, and it's also a very serious practice. So whenever I meet somebody, especially animal rights and Ashtanga are my two central things in life. And so when I meet people on the same page, it's instant connection. So yeah, Ashtanga. There's two definitions. So Ashtanga yoga as a whole, Ashtanga means 8 limbs, and it's basically a series of practices that lead towards spiritual truth, spiritual liberation. But within the physical practices, which are called asanas, Ashtanga is also a system of a specific form of practice. And it's a very methodical practice. You do the same practice every single day, and then eventually you start adding a little bit more. But so yeah, for my practice for years and years and years, I did the exact same routine every single morning. And for me, there's tremendous value in that consistency, because what that consistency does is it enables you to stop thinking about what you're going to do next, the next posture, and it allows you to go in. So when you do the exact same thing every day, you can start to see patterns in the mind that come up, patterns in the body that come up, and you begin to question those. So my physical practices of asana are practices of mindfulness and of introspection, and getting to know who I am at a much deeper level, in a more intimate way. And I find I've explored a lot, and I find Ashtanga to be the best path for me to dig in. And so in terms of my teaching, it's like I found such tremendous value and truth and value in my own Ashtanga practice. I just love the opportunity to share it with others. So when I was living in Colombia, doing activism, and I was living at a yoga studio teaching. So I was teaching in the mornings, and then doing activism in the afternoons and nights, and having the opportunity to share my practice with folk who hadn't done Ashtanga or with experienced Ashtangis. So yeah, I mean, I could ramble forever, but I guess, how did you come into Ashtanga, and why do you find Ashtanga like your space?
So I started out more like what we call vinyasa flow. And I really liked it. But I don't know, I would, anyway, there was something that was missing. So I started taking Ashtanga led classes in the yoga studio where I was practicing because it fit my schedule. And when I first started, I thought it was a joke. I thought there is no way this can be this hard, number one. Number two, there's no way that we're practicing asanas each time I go to class. So I honestly was confused because I did zero research. And I was like, this can't be true. But there was something about it that just kept, like, drawing me back in. It was like a magnet. And then unexpectedly, I returned back home. I was on a trip, and unexpectedly I returned. And that particular weekend, there was like an Ashtanga immersion workshop. And I thought, well, Angel, you have no more excuses. You're going to have to go to this workshop, because I was resisting how challenging Ashtanga was. And I think it's what you're saying. It holds up, I interpret it, it holds up a mirror.
100%.
To me anyway. And I obviously didn't want to look in the mirror for, at certain aspects of myself. And again, I just couldn't believe like what I was even experiencing. But, I happened unexpectedly be back in town, and I said, okay, you just have to go to this workshop. You just have to. I mean, so I went, and I just felt like more hooked and more drawn in. And then I just started to go every day, and like 5-6 times a week. And I just like, I just don't know what happened to me, but I just got into it. And like, I don't know, it really, filled a gap, I think, for me in the practice that I had before. Like I said, I practiced vinyasa. I did a little bit of restorative yoga as well. But there was just something missing for me. And so, yeah, I just kind of got drawn in, to be honest with you. And it's just my preferred, style or method of practice.
I resonate with everything you said. Yeah, it is. It's no joke. Like it is intense, physically, like mentally, spiritually. It really digs in, but that's why I love it. Like it pushes me to be the person that I aspire to be. And I think provides a lot of tools for making that happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I think it is very addicting, like in a very positive sense. Like there's just tremendous nectar in the practice. And I think, yeah, the more you dig in and the more you like figure out where that nectar is, the more like you want to just keep on coming back for more.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's how I feel. So, while we wait for more questions and comments, I'm gonna go to our next topic, which is naysayers, critics, and skeptics of our vegan diet and lifestyle. How do you
Mm.
handle how do you handle those situations?
Yeah. Whew. So there's a lot of different levels to that. I the first answer is always like with compassion. Um, and understanding that people have been indoctrinated into this oppressive system, and it's hurting them, and it's hurting all of us, right? So it's not like anybody's been born into this peaceful vegan world and then is like, actually, I want to go cause violence and like break out of it. It's the exact opposite. Like from the very first moment we're born into this oppressive speciesist world, and others are just imbibing that and reproducing it. So I always begin with compassion and recognize that it's not necessarily other people's fault. Um, and then depending on the scenario, I try to serve them and serve others the best way I can. I never beat around the bush, and I'm always quite direct, um, because even though it's not necessarily other people's fault that they've been born and conditioned in this species society, they are reproducing its violence, and they don't have a right to do so. Um, so I'm always very direct and state like, don't beat around the bush, about calling people out for that. But I do recognize that when people push back, it generally has to do with them feeling insecure and uncertain about what they're doing. Right? It's like they recognize at some point, it could be conscious or unconscious, that what they're doing is wrong, um, and they lash out accordingly. Right? Because there's this thing about eating vegan when it automatically insinuates that other people who aren't are are being unethical, and it's true, which is right, and it's a very uncomfortable place to be in. It's like, if I eat gluten free, it doesn't come with any normative or ethical consequences. People are like, oh, you don't eat gluten, that's fine. I do, that's fine. But when people are like, oh, you don't eat baby animals, but I do, it causes tension, right? And so when people are willing to have the conversation with me, I'm like super patient and I've got all the time in the world to talk to people. And when people aren't, it kind of just depends on how I'm feeling in that moment, right? Like if I'm willing to, I don't know, if people are automatically about to argue, I just explain to them really briefly, like, that I strongly disagree, why I disagree, and that we can have the conversation down the road if they're interested. Um, but so this is a long ramble, but I'll say one more thing, and then you can ask again if there's anything else I can specify. But I also recognize that these types of conversations and outreach don't need to happen all at once. Like, I don't see myself. I never look at a conversation as a one and done, right? I look at a conversation as a process, and depending on my relationship with that person, I can play a different role in the process. So if I'm meeting a random person on the subway or on an airplane and they ask me questions, I'm really, really direct. I look at it as like, this is my only conversation I'm having with this person. I'm gonna draw the whole conversation in one direction and be very direct and serious, and create space for people that are closer to that person to have more patient and drawn out conversations. Whereas when it's like my uncle, who I know I'm going to have a conversation with once or twice a year, I am more patient and like kind of hold their hand along the process. So it really depends on if I'm going to see them again, the situation that I meet them in, the way I react, but I never compromise my messaging. I never am apologetic or justify oppression. Um, and I never back down. And I think for those who have struggled like doing that, I would say two things. It takes practice to, as everything, like having outreach and having conversations with people and being direct, it's a practice. So the more you do it, when you start one place, it gets easier and easier. And second, I would just remember the individuals you're advocating for, right? These farmed animals who are living lives of suffering that we can't comprehend. And you being uncomfortable for a short, like 1 minute conversation is nothing compared to what these animals are going through. And it really is the bare minimum of what we can be doing. So whenever I feel uncomfortable or nervous or whatever, I just put in my head these individuals that we're fighting for, and that incomprehensible suffering that they go through, and try to channel them through me, and be a servant in that way.
Wow. So I'm just so grateful for you. I'm grateful to you for expressing it that way. And a few things come to mind. I think for me anyway, I've seen like people, they get, their back up a little bit because of their egos a little bit. They feel personally attacked. I also love what you're saying too. Like, it's like you're planting seeds. So you don't expect for this, new worldview to just, pop up just like that. But you're planting seeds, and, but I also feel that we as vegans have a responsibility. We have a responsibility to speak out. Mm-hmm. Yes, we're going to be compassionate. However, we have a responsibility to our, beautiful non-human animals and even our human animals who are working in these, environments.
Right.
And we have a responsibility to the health of our planet, going forward. And so, those are the points that come to mind in what you were just, sharing.
Totally. I think it's so a friendly little plug here. I've got a journal article being published next month. It's called Silence Abets Violence, but it's about the Liberation Pledge. And so the Liberation Pledge is a commitment to never eat in the presence of somebody who's eating animal products. And so in my perspective, in my view, not eating animals, being vegan, isn't an ethical thing to do. It's the bare minimum. It's like, I don't congratulate anybody for not molesting children. It's not praiseworthy to not do bad things. It's just the bare minimum of basic level of decency to not cause that kind of violence to others. I do think that what we actually need, and it's not changing anything, unfortunately. It's like you eating a vegan burger in your house is not shifting systems. It's not building justice. It's not building power. It's healthier for you, which is good. But it's such a low level. It's not shifting demand either. But what we need to address these systems is to challenge them directly, and to challenge the oppressive practices of others, and to never turn away from that. And so, yeah, I think eat vegan. It's a basic level of decency, but it's not praiseworthy. What is praiseworthy and what's important is to be advocating it towards others, and to be challenging systems of oppression when we see them, wherever we see them.
Wow. I mean, first of all, I want to thank you for labeling, labeling in the way you did, this liberation, because what did you call it? A liberation pledge?
Liberation pledge. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Because the other day I was listening to a vegan podcast. Shout out to all the vegan podcasters out there. Mm-hmm. And I was just blown away by this guest who said that she refuses to join a gathering during which animals are being consumed. And I thought I had to stop. I was walking and listening, and I had to stop and take a note of that. I kid you not. And it was just so powerful. And I'm just so, grateful to you for creating this paper, publishing the paper. I'm going to be on the lookout. So everybody keep your eyes peeled for this paper, this journal that, Nico's publishing soon. But again, to me, it's like, we have a responsibility to go beyond the bare minimum.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we have a response. Those of us who have have this knowledge, we have a responsibility to act upon it. And again, I think the kind of ethical demands that are upon us are so much beyond what any of us are doing. And that's okay. It's like, none of us are perfect and we're all doing our best. But I think at the very bare minimum, we need to be active in everything we do. And when we see oppression, we cannot stay silent. That's the bare minimum, whether it's what you see on your neighbor's plate, or when you see, there's so many different levels of it, but at the very bare minimum, for males, like if you're in a locker room and you hear sexist, misogynistic language, you need to call it out right there. When you see homophobia or transphobia, there's no room for that, and you need to call it out on the spot. Racism, you can't have tolerance for that. All these forms of oppression, when you see them manifest, you have to nip them right in the butt there. I think being silent is actually that's the kind of the argument my paper makes, is that failing to speak out of that makes you complicit in it, and actually you're a central role in reproducing these systems of violence. So within the speciesism frame, it's like when we see another person eating an animal and we don't address it explicitly and we don't denormalize it, what we do is we give them social license to continue doing it. Right? What we do is we say, it frames it as a personal decision. What it does is it says, I eat vegan. It's a personal decision. It makes me feel good. You can eat a baby cow. That's your personal decision. And so it gives them social license to continue doing it everywhere else they go. And as a vegan, it gives them even more social license than when other people do it, because you normalize it in a really, really problematic way, and you become culpable in the reproduction of this violence. And I think it's an area of the movement we don't talk about, right? And it's because it's hard. It's so uncomfortable and difficult to have these conversations with people because they cut so deep. I miss you too. It's so nice to see you. Just wondering.
I just wondering. Yeah, and we have some other comments here. Animal Liberation Rebel, Premier, I guess, 1ER, bars, let's go Nico, and double fist bumps.
Ayo, Omar's the homie. So I can wrap that up, but basically I think that in short, I think eating vegan isn't the goal. It's changing systems of oppression, and the way we do that is by calling out the oppressive practices of others, compassionately, empathetically, with love, but also never backing down, and never tolerating it.
Wow, thank you so much for saying all of that. Tell us, please keep your comments and questions coming for Nico. We have a few minutes left only, but Nico, what are a couple of tips or a piece of advice you would give to people who are vegan friendly, vegan curious, new vegans, newbies? What would you suggest to them?
You are in for a treat. I'll be real, there's no life decision I've made that has brought me more fulfillment, more pleasure, more meaning than stopping eating others. It's not, you're not giving up anything, you're gaining the world. And really, if all you cared about was being a more fulfilled human being and didn't care about anything else, it was like, there's no decision you can make that's going to be giving you more value and meaning to your life. I promise. It's been 8 years since I stopped eating others, and I've never felt better about it. It really is the most fulfilling thing I've done. So I think what the first thing to do is to not see it as giving anything up. You're not giving anything up, but you're gaining. right? You eating animals, it's detrimental to your health. You're hurting yourself, you're harming yourself, and you're causing violence into others. So what you're actually doing is you're removing violence from your life, and you're filling your life with peace and love. So whenever so that's I think people have troubles with it when they see it as a sacrifice. Like, oh no, I have to give this up. And that's not it. You're gaining so much. The second thing is yourself, but be consistent, right? The transition is the most difficult part, because what you're doing is you're unprocessing and reconstructing norms that you've created for yourself and habits over decades. And that can be challenging, right? Because we have these comfort foods that we know exactly how to make, exactly yada, yada, yada. And the transition period can be a little bit challenging. But the good news is you're going to find new foods that are even better. And when you make them, they remind you of your ethics, your values, and your commitment to living with them. So I would say, I would say go for it. You're not going to regret it. Be consistent with it and hold yourself accountable, and find a friend to do it with you. So maybe you know someone who's already vegan. Reach out to them, tell them about this change you're making, and they're going to be your number one fan, and just talk with them. Maybe you don't know anybody close to you that's vegan. That could even be better. Find somebody who's also veg curious, who's willing to realign their actions with their values and take the journey with them. There are so many resources. So, and part of this, always feel free to shoot me a message if you have questions. I'm always happy to chat with you. But there are so many resources out there, veg guides about how to make this transition. There are so many supporters out there. I guess the last thing, I could talk all these questions I could talk to you about for an hour, but always center the why, right? The why are the victims that you're refusing to harm, you're refusing to do violence against. So when you have clear in your mind the reason why you want to stop eating others, for environmental reasons, for ethical reasons, for health reasons, then any of the decisions that follow from that are easy. And it's like anything in life, but when you clearly define the why and write it down, write a little journal entry, be like, I'm fucking sick and tired of this violent system, of abuse and oppression, and I refuse to be complicit in it from here on forward. Write it down, and whenever you have challenges, just remember that why, and everything else is so easy after that.
Awesome. I want to do a giveaway back to Vegan Super Nerd 33. Thanks for the wave. And we have hearts and broccoli from Master Melo.
Hey,
all right, so we just have a teeny tiny window left here on Nico. So tell everybody, please, what are the best ways for people to contact you for information, collaboration, etc.?
Cool. Instagram is probably the best. So as you see, it's nico.stubler. Shoot me a DM. Sometimes I take a day or so to get back if things are a little bit crazy, but I promise I always do respond. I love hearing from people. Honestly, there's nothing that I love more than getting updates from folk about their journeys, about their truth that they've experienced. And yeah, like I just feel so grateful and privileged and inspired to be in this movement with y'all. It's this global movement that really is shifting the world as we speak. We're transforming norms and transforming the world, and we're doing it collectively. And the more people that I get to know in the process, like the happier I am.
Awesome. A wave back there to George Harmony LA. Hi there. Thank you. And okay, so we just have a couple minutes left. So Nico, I just want to again thank you so much for taking the time to come on and talk with us. I've learned a lot. I'm really pumped. I need to go and do some more research. And I'm going to ask you, Nico, just to kind of wrap this up for us. with letting us know what are your future projects coming up and any final thoughts you have for us.
All right, cool, Angel. So first off, I can't believe it's already been 50 minutes. I feel like we're just getting started, and I feel like we could just go like on a week retreat and talk nonstop.
Well, sign me up for that too.
Okay, yeah, let's get that done. I just want to say thank you so much for reaching out to me and inviting me to have this conversation. It's been really special. And I just love meeting like-minded people, so thank you. So I got that journal article being published next week or next month that I mentioned that I'll be sharing. And I hope it's going to be a resource for activists to grow and develop their own activism and to push the movement in a slightly different direction moving forward. And then I'll be publishing a book at the end of next year. It's making the case for banning the sale of meat, which listeners might be a little bit like perhaps surprised about that idea. I don't think it's a radical idea at all. I think it's a pretty basic and pragmatic step. And I think it's something that we can win, actually. So the book makes a case for banning meat and how to ban meat. And then I've got a research project with Harvard Law School right now that'll be coming out in a few months about policy options for addressing the public health threat of live animal markets, basically looking at how animal markets here in the United States lead to pandemic and zoonosis, and steps that society can be taking to eliminate those. So those are some of that stuff. And then like activism here and there, but I don't know, long story short, reach out, shoot me a DM. I'd love to chat with each and every one of you. And more than anything, like Angel, I'm so grateful for you creating the space. It's been really, again, I felt like I already knew you, and now I feel like I do know you a bit more, and hopefully we can eat some good vegan food and practice some Ashtanga together at some point soon.
Well, you're the teacher, I'm the student, and I know you're going to say, no, you're also a student, because that's what you Ashtanga teachers say. But I'm going to need a lot of adjustments and a lot of patience.
I'm full of adjustments and patience, so that sounds perfect.
Awesome. So send us off here, Nico.
All right.
Wrap it up and put a bow on it for us, please.
All right. I just, everyone listening, just like recognize that you're a droplet of divinity. Like you are everything that you need to be already. Like we are the most beautiful things we can imagine, and it's already wrapped up inside you. And when we act with peace, and love in our hearts and create that in the world, it is in line with our deepest sense of ourself. Like when we create love and peace in the world, there's nothing that feels better to our divine selves than that. And so there's no greater gift you can give yourself than acting in alignment with your deepest truth, and that is that you are a droplet of love. And the more droplets of love we have coming together, the quicker we're going to have to this sea change in the universe. And I guess the last thing is I'm so optimistic. The world is so fucked in so many ways, but things are changing. And more than anything, we have the power to change it. And I think it's when we act together in this community, like this community that we're in is changing it. So I've got tremendous hope, tremendous inspiration, and tremendous gratitude for all of y'all.
Wow. I just want to thank you so much, Nico. I'm really pumped. We have George Harmony LA saying Motivation Monday. I agree, George.
Let's change the world, Tim.
I am super motivated also, and Deacons of Miami, hi there as well. So Nico, I am, again, so grateful to you. I applaud you for all that you're doing and all that you will continue to do. And I just want to say again, thank you so much, Nico. I'm going to save it to stories, IGTV, and my feed, and then I will message you after.
Okay, well, this has been an absolute pleasure. Omar, I appreciate you too. Angel, this has been really, again, thank you for creating the space. Like, this is my favorite type of thing to do, is have conversations like this. Unfortunately, I spend most of my day just like reading and writing. So it's nice to be able to connect in this kind of way. And yeah, let's make it happen in person here soon.
All right. All right. Sign me up. So I want to say thanks again to Nico. Thanks, everybody, and take good care. Bye bye. Hearts
Love
back.
y'all. Love
Hearts
y'all.
back. Bye bye.
Peace.